out of all the pictures that I've seen online, they all look like this, which has the A-arm coming out and then this forged piece here. That's actually on an upward angle so that when this is bolted up to the actual quad, that sits almost level. Now the bend on this one isn't up here, it's actually down here at the mounting points to where it connects to the frame. If we take just a little straight edge here and I come down a bit, you guys can see we're bent in on the inside. So if I lay that flat, you guys can see there's a little gap there on that side, and then there's a little gap there, and you guys can tell we're bent up in the middle. Now this part here, this upper, is 189 bucks, and the lower was $141. So if I can salvage these, then I save my my buddy about $300-400 bucks in parts. Now you guys can see that we've got some bare metal showing. So what I did was use my die grinder here with a wire wheel on it, and I've taken off the paint anywhere where it's rusted around the welds, and I'm just inspecting all of the welds, guys. I'm going in, I'm looking for any cracks, anywhere that there would be welds broken just from the impact. And this upper A-arm here doesn't look to be cracked, so what I'm going to do now is just hit this with a little bit of black spray paint just so it prevents a little bit of rusting. As long as the bends where the mounting points aren't bent that much, I should be able to save these guys, and hopefully they're not bent that much out of shape. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do at this point because the A-arms were on back order, so that's why I was trying to reuse the old A-arms, but there is a slight curvature right here on that A-arm. I'm going to try and mess around with this thing for a little bit, but I don't want to spend too much time. If I have to, I'll replace the part. So in an attempt to save my buddy some money, because he's been a great customer of ours using the old A-arms with the new hub, I'm actually spending more time just messing about. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and order those parts, and hopefully they come in before September the 5th. Well guys, we finally got our parts in. Brand new upper, lower control arms. So just to show you guys, these things sit flat, nothing's bent. That stuff's nice and level, so there's no bending in the actual A-arm itself for the upper. And same thing for the lowers here. So everything lines up straight. So I'll get the old A-arms and we'll do a little comparison. Okay, so I got A-arms here. This is the new one, this is the old one. So first thing that I noticed, the connection points, they're nice and level, where we come to this one and we can already see, you know, it's completely bent. It also bent this up a little here. Now you might not be able to see it. This is bent up a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty straight here. Okay, so here's our upper control arm. Again, same thing, you know, nice and level. And we come over to here, and you guys can see these are just completely bent out of whack. And there's also some curvature right there. Whereas on this one, look at that, guys. Perfectly straight. So I definitely needed to replace these A-arms. You know, I tried to save my buddy some money, but at the end of the day, guys, you're not going to be able to fix everything. Some things you're going to just have to go and replace. When it comes down to working on Hondas, you got to go with OEM stuff. You know, as far as like air filters and stuff like that, you know, you can go aftermarket and save a bit of money, but when it comes down to actual hardware that you need for your machine, don't cheap out. And the nice thing about this is it comes with a brand new ball joint. So I'm just going to steal the nut off of that because the new hardware doesn't come with any of the nuts or bolts or washers. And we can see already that the shock absorber here is lining up to our brackets on our upper A-arm a lot better than they were before, guys. If you remember, on the old A-arm I had to take the shock absorber and bend it back just to get it to fit. So now we're lining up. Okay, so the bottom one slipped right in. I got both bolts in nice and easy. Like I said, they just went right through. So everything was lined up perfectly. The A-arms to the frame aren't bent out of position, whereas on the upper A-arm here, I can get the bolt in on this side, I can get the bolt in on that side, but I'm having problems lining them up with the inside brackets. I might have to pull this back off and do a little bending to these tabs that come off of the frame. Everything's looking pretty good so far, other than that. They're lining up nicely. So I was able to finally get the top bolt through. So if this is where the A-arm's supposed to be, then that bracket bent back. When the A-arm, the upper A-arm, the old one, bent in, it you know, physically distorted that bracket. So I'm gonna have to remove this upper A-arm, get in behind there with a hammer, and I'm gonna have to force this bracket here farther out towards me. Okay, so I'm laying on the ground here, just having a look up underneath at exactly what I gotta bend and how much. Check that out right there, guys. I'll zoom in on it. That's a crack. So I'm gonna have to disconnect the battery and weld that. I don't know if that one up there is, but that is definitely a crack. So that has to be welded. So now I'm gonna have to go through it and make sure that nothing else is cracked. We can see just how far out of position we are on that. I'm gonna have to bring that in quite a bit. Okay, so I've welded all of that now, so that's all solid. So that side is taken care of. What we're gonna do now is try to get a hydraulic press, and then we're gonna put the end of the press over there and the front of the press here, and then hopefully it'll push this out, because we can't really get a hammer in there to swing and hit it from the back side. Hopefully the hydraulic press idea works. I think it should. Last night I hooked up a set of torches here, so we got propane, oxygen, and this stuff burns hotter than oxyacetylene, so we need that to heat up the bracket. And we also got power ram here, so this is the pump end. So you got a handle up here that goes to a line, and you plug this guy into this thing right here. So it's a hydraulic ram. This is a 4-inch, and it's got 2 inches of travel, so a total of 6 inches. So we might end up having to put a piece of wood in behind to get in, and these work on their side. So we're gonna have this thing up on its side, and it's gonna push against the bracket. So a little bit of heat, a little bit of this thing, should be good to go. Okay, so I got the pump hooked up here. Had to run the line through the bottom of the frame because it hooks off on a 90. But what we got here is something like this. So we got the ram right in there with a chunk of wood, and I keep cutting pieces of wood off and adding and taping it together. It's a 4-inch ram with a 2-inch travel, so I only got about 6 inches. So the bracket's already started to move a little bit, but we got a little bit more to go still. Okay, so using the ram, we've managed to get the back piece right here bent out. Now we just got to bend the front piece there, but the problem is our power ram's getting hung up, that guy right there. So we're just trying to figure out the best way to do it. You can see where we've been taking the heat to it to get it a little bit more malleable. So that's what the front left side looks like, and this is what the front right side looks like. So you guys can see we're starting to get the bracket out. Now I'm gonna end up having to go in there and weld probably to reinforce everything afterwards, but we're getting there. And I'm just using this dowel to try to get a nice reference point. Okay, so we've been taking the torch to this thing quite a bit. You can see it's going white just from the heat. We have a wet rag up here protecting the brake line, and I've had to grind out the hole here. The problem is we ended up needing to go up, and unfortunately we can't go up, so I had to just notch it out like that. But what that allowed me to do is get my dowel through, and as you guys can see, we are now lined up. So the back one here is in the perfect position, and it lines up perfectly straight with these ones. You know, if this was a little longer, it would go through both of them, but we're good. You guys can see everything lines up nice and straight. So now the big thing is I'm gonna have to figure out a way to fix that, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna go in and weld a plate on this side of it with a new hole that's slightly lower, and then you know, try to get it below here so that I can weld it nice and solid, because it's got to be strong, because you know, this is a ATV, it's going to be off-road, and the wheel pivots up and down, so every time you hit a bump, the A-arm puts pressure that way, right? So we're gonna see. We're still working on her, but this is what I'm into it for here. We got torches, hammers, hydraulic rams, sledgehammers, die grinders, pliers. It's a big job. So this ended up being way bigger job than I initially thought. There's just so much damage done to the frame. So the frame was bent, all the brackets were bent. You know, I have to physically rework the metal to get it to the right position, and I can't use the old A-arm for reference. So what I have to do is let it cool down. After I heat it up with the torch, I got to let it cool down, then take the new A-arm and try to fit it up. So I'm bolting up to the front bracket, and then I'm using that as a reference point, you know, for where I go. And then, you know, that just got too time consuming because I have to let it cool, then check it, and then heat it up again, bend it some more. So I ended up just using that piece of dowel, and it worked. But yeah, big job. I'm doing Floydie a solid here. So that's it for part 3, guys. You know, we tried to save my buddy a little bit of money by using the old A-arms, but unfortunately they were just a little bit too bent out of shape, so we couldn't end up using them. Once we got the new A-arms in though, we had to bend up that bracket. We were able to do that using the torch and the power ram. Awesome tools. They're pretty expensive. We ended up borrowing that one, so if you have to buy your own, you know, you really got to be doing quite a bit of fabrication jobs to kind of write off the costs of that tool. We ended up getting all those cracks in the frame welded up, so stay tuned for part 4 where I do a little bit of metal fabrication, get that bracket all welded up and fixed, and get this machine back together. If you guys enjoyed the video, think about leaving me a thumbs up. You know, it really helps me out. You can click here to subscribe, and you can click over here to watch part 4 once that video's up. I upload every week, so be sure to stop by, check the channel out, and as always, guys, thanks for watching.